Among the most famous statesmen, political figures, and prose writers in Western history, Marcus Tullius Cicero played a prominent role in the history of the Roman Republic. Cicero lived in the tumultuous times heralding the end of the Republican era, when Rome was racked by civil war and internal unrest. Observing the institutions of the Republic crumble around him and the rise of demagogic generals, Cicero championed a restoration of more traditional Republican norms. His career would be marked by clashes with members of Rome's ascendant military elites who sought to consolidate political control into their own hands. Cicero was famously well educated and became renowned for his academic talents from a young age. He studied and translated many works of Greek rhetoric and philosophy into Latin. Ultimately, he studied law and became Rome's most prominent lawyer. Cicero was not content with his academic and legal pursuits, however, and he therefore embarked on a political career. Cicero held a variety of political offices, culminating with his election as consul in 63 BC. The most important event of his consulship was his thwarting of the conspiracy of Lucius Spurius Catilina, which aimed to overthrow the Republic. The Catiline conspiracy was an attempt made by disgruntled nobles stymied in their political ambitions, along with dissatisfied veterans and plebeians, to seize control of the Roman government. Catilina had promoted a policy of debt relief, which was wildly popular amongst the growing ranks of plebeian poor. The plan involved assembling an army of plebeians and veterans outside of Rome to march on the city, while supporters within Rome itself would assassinate a number of senators in order to sow chaos. The first politician slated to be killed was Cicero himself. The conspiracy was betrayed, however, and Cicero avoided the assassination attempt, while the regular army forces crushed the troops that were mustered beyond the city. This episode produced the Catiline Orations, which were the speeches that Cicero made denouncing the conspirators, and which remain among Cicero's most famous works to this day. Cicero's victory in crushing the Catiline conspiracy was marred by the events that followed. After the collapse of the conspiracy, Cicero had a number of the conspirators summarily executed. This was a startlingly harsh sentence, as executing Roman citizens without trial was unprecedented and scandalous at the time. This act would haunt Cicero in later years. 4 years after these events, a law was promulgated mandating exile on anyone who killed a Roman citizen without trial. The law was squarely aimed at Cicero and succeeded in exiling him. However, his prestige was such that he was recalled to Rome in the following year. By this time, it was clear that while Cicero had friends, he also had enemies, and while he demonstrated his loyalty to the constitutional structure of the Republic by acts such as defeating the Catiline conspiracy, he failed to implement any reforms which would have alleviated the grievances of the people whom the conspiracy had aimed to protect. Cicero at this point was preeminent among the political elites of Rome, and was sought out as an ally by many within the Senate. He failed to successfully navigate these factional divides, however, and made a series of mistakes which would ultimately cost him his life and doom the Republic. When offered to join Julius Caesar's triumvirate with Pompey and Crassus, Cicero refused. When the conflict between Caesar and Pompey finally boiled over, Cicero chose the side of Pompey. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon, Cicero joined Pompey and his army in Greece, which Caesar crushed at the Battle of Pharsalus. After this conflict, Cicero was pardoned by Caesar and returned to Rome, but his position had become precarious. Cicero did not participate in the conspiracy to murder Julius Caesar, but he was exuberant at the news of the event. Brutus allegedly called out Cicero's name and invoked him to restore the Republic after the gruesome deed was accomplished. However, if Cicero thought that the death of Caesar would bring about the restoration of the empire, he was sorely mistaken. Mark Antony had served under Julius Caesar for many years as his right-hand man, and had assumed the leadership of the Caesarian faction within Rome upon Julius Caesar's death. This brought him into inevitable conflict with Cicero. Fearing that Antony would use his power as Caesar had, Cicero launched a series of speeches denouncing him, called the Philippics. When Antony began using his legions to hunt down and displace Caesar's assassins from their posts, Cicero had him declared a national enemy, cementing the bitter enmity between the two. However, Cicero could not find the forces capable of defeating Antony in battle, and also lacked the political clout to vanquish him and his supporters in the Senate. Antony responded by forming the second triumvirate with Octavian. These triumvirs immediately began to proscribe their enemies, and although Octavian, Julius Caesar's heir, desperately sought to spare Cicero, Antony was determined that Cicero should be added to the list of those proscribed. Cicero attempted to flee Italy, but was caught and executed. He supposedly lowered his head and offered his captors his throat as he accepted his fate. He was beheaded, and his head and hands were displayed in the Forum. Cicero's demise is symbolic of the demise of the Republic itself, which he so vociferously championed. Although honorable and resolute, Cicero refused to ally with forces which he felt threatened the Republic. When those forces became sufficiently powerful, Cicero was ultimately consumed by them. For all his brilliance, Cicero failed to address the institutional problems that undermined faith in the Republic amongst both the laboring plebeians and the ambitious aristocrats. Thus, the Republican government, which Cicero so dearly cherished, would fall.